I'd like to begin by saying that we've just reached agreement. The Secretary of Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, with the major airlines, all of our great airlines, to participate in a payroll support program. This agreement will fully support airline industry workers, preserve the vital role airlines play in our economy, and protect taxpayers.
That was President Trump praising Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin for coming to an agreement with 10 major airlines on a payroll support program for flight attendants, pilots, and other employees that have been furloughed by COVID-19.
Well, the debate over the airlines bailout dragged late into the Senate stimulus bill negotiations last month, with disagreements on whether the fund should be structured as loans or grants and what strings should be attached to it.
Here to talk about what some of those strings are attached to the bailout is the president of the International Association of Flight Attendants, Sara Nelson. Sara is considered one of the most significant voices in the airline union movement, and some predict she may be the next female president of the AFA-CWA, but we won't go there right now. Sara, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, so
glad to be here.
Thank you. Sara, your industry got $50 billion. But there's some concern that Treasury took some of the money that Congress has intended to go to its workers, restructured that as a loan, and that may have an impact on the industry being able to go forward after the initial period. Is that still a valid concern?
That is still a valid concern. What we did here was actually revolutionary, a bipartisan agreement to actually package this bailout to go directly to taxpayers, directly to the workers on the front lines. And the things that Americans are so fed up with bailing out corporations and the banks, and then looking at these big stock buybacks and executive bonuses and giving all the money to the shareholders rather than investing in the business and making it better for consumers and for workers, are all things that we dealt with in this package. So this was historical. And what we did was we took the $50 billion and we said $25 billion needs to go directly to keeping people in their jobs, with paychecks continued, their health care continued, those strings that I just talked about attached to that. And then for additional operating costs, the airlines can apply for loans. Now, neither of these pieces has gone out the door yet. The first part is these payroll grants. And what the secretary did was turn 30% of that into a loan. So it's not really what Congress passed in the CARES Act in a bipartisan agreement.
You know, Sara, a lot of say the industry shouldn't be bailed out. We're doing too much with bailouts, but the industry is set to lose $250 billion from the coronavirus. Can you break this down for us? Because sometimes people just think these are just planes in the sky, but as you just spoke, these are pilots, flight attendants, mechanics. These are people's jobs that are associated with this industry. Can you break down what that actually looks like for everyone?
Sure. This is for 2 million workers who do everything from push a wheelchair in an airport for someone who needs help to the pilot who flies the plane. The airline employees themselves are 750,000 workers. And so that's who this money was intended to go to keep people in their jobs, keep the industry intact. What's happened right now is that the demand for air travel is down to just 6% of what is normal during this time. And so there's no way that airlines can stay afloat at that. And yet the American people really count on this infrastructure of the airline industry to serve all of our communities. There are prescription drugs that get delivered on our planes. I don't think people know that the vast majority of U.S. mail is in the belly of passenger airplanes, and that we are delivering very critical personnel to help to fight the virus. So it's extremely important that our airline industry stay intact. But what has happened is, if there were no government intervention here, there would actually be more than 90% of those 750,000 workers on the front lines, your friends and neighbors, the people in your community, laid off and added to the rolls of the unemployment lines.
You know, Sara, the president of United Airlines said recently that there will be fewer people flying in the month of May than flew in the entire more people flew in one day of May 2019 than will fly in the entire month of 2020. This bill, this money, is supposed to keep you guys guaranteed that you'll pay people through, I think, the end of September. Here's my concern. A, is that enough money to keep all those employees that you just mentioned paid? And B, on October 1st, if it's not, are we going to see massive layoffs? And then I want you to, here's the one thing that I will put my political hat on for a second. October 1st is 5 weeks from the next election cycle. What's going to happen if thousands and thousands of people get laid off right before an election? Have the politicians missed the boat on this?
I think you just hit the nail on the head, Sean. So the way that this is set up is that this really isn't enough. So let me be really clear. The $25 billion that is designated for payroll grants is only 76% of what's actually needed to keep people in their jobs connected to their health care, because the payroll grant applications from the airlines was actually worth $31 billion. So there is a haircut of 24% right off the top. And then turning the rest of that grant money into 30% of loans means that these airlines are more heavily leveraged. It means that they can't afford to have as many people on the payroll in October as is necessary. So we're going to see layoffs in October. And we're also going to potentially see some airline bankruptcies if this is not fixed. If this is not fixed either by the Treasury Secretary himself, or if this is not fixed in the next stimulus package. And so politicians need to be very much aware of that, because 5 weeks from the elections, I doubt the last thing that they want is, when we're trying to recover our economy, the airline industry is not able to return to full strength and is actually crumbling right at that moment. When that message went out from Scott Kirby yesterday, I got text messages from flight attendants saying they were crying. You know, it was just 2 months ago that we were going to be hiring over 100,000 workers in this industry, and now we're at this state.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I appreciate everything you're doing to support the industry and to keep us out safe in the skies.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. We look forward to staying updated on how airline workers are coping with this. But coming